Okay, so let's calculate some IVs. When we're looking at IVs, it's real important to know exactly what we want. Here, we're just trying to find milliliters per hour. The order is giving us our milliliters, telling us how long we need it. So on this one, we have 100 milliliters over 6 hours. We want milliliters per hour. So there's really nothing to that one except for your division. And so all you're going to do is take your 100, divide it by 6, and it gives me 16.66666. I don't usually put decimals onto a pump or into our milliliters per hour. I would rather it be a whole number. So 16.6 rounded will give me 17 milliliters per hour. So then we make it a little more difficult. Let's not make it quite as easy and give us 50 mils over 20 minutes. Now, I didn't give you the hours in there, so we're going to have to convert. We know that there's 60 minutes in an hour. Again, just like all the others, we want to cancel our labels so that we know that we're set up right. We ended up with mils per hour. For me, I'm going to take out zeros just to make the math easier. So then on the top, I have 50 times 6, which gives me 300. On the bottom, I just have 2. So 300 divided by 2 gives me 150 milliliters an hour. Now, if we add in a drop factor, that changes things a little more. We have a little more information to go in there. Here we have an order for 500 milliliters over 4 hours. It tells us that our drop factor delivers 10 drops per milliliter. So if it's going to deliver 10 drops per milliliter, if I cancel there, I see my mils are gone, but I'm left with drops per hour, and I want drops per minute. So I'm going to turn my hour into 60 minutes. So then my hours are going to cancel, and I'm left with drops per minute. Again, take out some zeros to make it easier. And so then I'm left with 500 on the top times 1, which is 500. And on the bottom, I'm left with 4 times 6, which is 24. So when I divide that out, I have 500 divided by 24, which gives me 20.83. Now we're counting drops here, so we can't have partial drops. So we're just going to have 21 drops per minute. This one also has drops per mil, and we want drops per minute. So we're going to do 1 liter of saline going at 150 mils an hour. So when we're trying to figure this, we have 1 liter and we're doing it at 150 Right here is what I'm looking at. The 1 liter and the 150. I need to look at that and differentiate which information is necessary. Do I need to know how much fluid is in my bag, or do I need to know how fast I'm going to run that fluid? And all I'm trying to figure out is how fast I'm going to run it. It doesn't matter how long it's going to run, how much is in the bag. So the only information that is necessary is the 150 mils an hour, because that's how fast the order says I need to run this. So I've got 150 mils an hour. Now my tubing delivers 15 drops per mil. And this comes right off of my tubing bag, the container that it comes in. On the outside of your tubing, it'll tell you what your drip factor is. It's usually in the corner, and it tells you that it'll deliver 15 drops per mil, or whatever that one does. So at this point, we have drops and hours. We need minutes. So we're going to take our hour and turn it into 60 minutes. So then when we cancel, our hours cancel, our milliliters cancel, we're left with drops per minute. I'm going to take those zeros out. So then I'm going to multiply 15 times 15 on the top, and I get 225. And on the bottom, all I have is 6. So when I take my 225 and divide it by 6, I end up with 37.5, which is 38 drops a minute. Now, when we're adding medications to an infusion, it's important to know what medications we're adding and how they come. So if I'm adding a medication that is a liquid, like this, I'm drawing a liquid out and putting that into another liquid. So if I have a cup and I pour more liquid into it, it's actually going to increase my volume. So if I have 2 milliliters and I draw out 1 milliliter of medicine and add that into 2 milliliters, then now I have 3 milliliters of solution. Now, of course, that's completely different when I have a powder, because if I put that powder into water, it's going to dissolve. It doesn't add any volume to it. So if I have 2 milliliters, if I put in, now this is not going to be in milliliters, it's going to be in grams or milligrams. So if I put 1 gram into 2 milliliters, then I still have 2 milliliters because the medication dissolved. So you have to know what you're working with before you can do added to infusions. So on this one, we have 1 gram of vancomycin every 12 hours. And it tells you that the vancomycin comes 1 gram in 250 milliliters. So the amount of medication at that point does not matter when we're trying to figure mils per hour, because that gram dissolved into my 250 mils. So my important information for how fast I'm going to run it is I've got 250 milliliters of solution to be given over 1 hour. And it wants to know how many mils per hour to give. Well, there it is. It's already given. You're going to give 250 mils an hour. So when we look at a different one, this one actually has some milligrams. Here we've got 500 milligrams of meds in 500 mils of solution. And so our supply is 25 milligrams per mil. Now we want to give 500 milligrams. And so the first thing that we have to figure out is how many milliliters are we going to have to add to that 500 milliliter bag. So what we have to start off with is we have 500 milligrams that we need, and it comes in a mil. You have 25 milligrams. So this looks like our first problems where we're just figuring out a milliliter. And so when we try to figure that out, all we're doing is dividing our 500, divide it by 25, and we end up with 20 milliliters. So our medication is going to be 20 milliliters of medication that we're going to add to this 500 milliliters of solution. So when we add that, we now have 520 milliliters of liquid. So at this point, let me put your 520 back up here so you understand, remember what we were doing. So now I need to know how many mils per hour I'm going to run this. So I've got 520 milliliters, and it needs to be given over 6 hours. I'm needing mils per hour, so all I'm doing now is dividing. I'm taking my 520, divide that by 6, and it's 86.66666. Again, we're doing mils per hour. So we're going to do 87 mils per hour is how much we're going to infuse to get the right amount of medication in there. I hope this helps.